we're past time and we've got a good group, so I think you're ready and we're set to go.
All right. Let's get rolling. All right. Hey, guys. How you doing this week? Hope everybody's weekend was full of fun and excitingness, and hope you guys got good weather out by you. The weather here is so-so. It's now just starting to get into the 60s here on Long Island. What we're going to cover tonight is a weapon which is called a Hanbo. A Hanbo is half of a Rokushaku bow or a longbow. So Rokushaku bow is usually approximately 6 feet. Hanbo is approximately 3 feet. All right. Now, if yours is a little longer or a little shorter than 3 feet, don't sweat it. It's not a big deal. There actually is another bow in between that, which is called a Jo, and there's actually one that's a little bit smaller, which is called a Tanbo. So Tanbos you can't really use for what we're doing tonight, but if your stick is that long, it's not a problem. We're going to be covering basic striking tonight and how I hold and how I was taught to use the bow, which is going to be a little bit different than what you guys are probably used to. As I recall, you guys tend to use the more of what I call inverted, one up, one down hand position to use your bow work. The way I was taught is both hands are in the same position. All right, and the reason why is when you have what I call the inverted hand position, one up, one down, you can't extend the stick out that well. And one of the things that I was taught is that if you have a 6 foot stick or you have a 3 foot stick, use as much of the length as you can. You know, if I have a 3 foot stick and I'm only using this much of the length, it's kind of doesn't really work for me. I'd rather be using the whole length of the stick as much as possible and keep the bad guys to get away from you. Like I said, we're just going to go over some basic striking tonight because the locking and the throwing it up, unless you've got a partner there to block and throw, we can't do as a single person. It becomes a little bit difficult. So understand that all the locking and the throwing is done if the person's trying to disarm your stick from you. So if the guy, like if I go to hit somebody with a stick and he grabs it, I'm not just going to try and wrestle it away from him. I'm going to do some form of locking position to either force him to let go or create pain or worse, damage to the body. So the first position we're going to start with, in the right hand, the stick straight down in front of you, kind of like a walking stick, all right? So if you read the email that was sent out, Hanbo is very similar to a cane. The big difference, obviously, is the cane has a loop on the end of it. Hanbo doesn't. Although there are a lot of people who use walking sticks that are just straight sticks like this. So you're going to keep it in your right hand. You're going to keep it approximately even with your toes on the floor next to the outside of your foot. Like you can get back your foot more so you can see it. So a little bit to the outside of your foot. And what you're going to do, I'll face the way you guys are facing so you can see a little bit better. And we're going to take a little step to the side, and you're going to swing the stick straight up, okay? So what it's going to look like is from here, I'm going to take my right foot, take a small step to the right, let my left foot flip around, so I'm going to slide my body using my body power, and I'm going to shoot the Hanbo straight up. All right, so you would be aiming at the groin, you would be aiming at the jaw. If the person had a weapon, you would be aiming at the hand, all right? Not so much a body strike with this one. So from here again, we're gonna take the right foot, take a little bit step to the right, just enough to get off the center a little bit, allow my body to turn. As my body turns, I'm gonna shoot this straight up, and I wanna end up in this position. So let's do that 5 times in a row. So here we go. Step, hit, 1. Step, hit, 2. Step, hit, 3. Step, hit, 4. And step, hit, 5. All right. So that's coming from, for easy terms, from the bottom to the top. Okay, I'm coming from underneath. Now we're going to bring it over the top. So what's going to happen is you're going to allow the stick to come over and down. And this is going to turn your arm over, and you want to try to have your wrist and your fist in a straight line. So in other words, I don't want to hit like this or have my arm in a funky position. One of the things that's really important, especially when you're using the bow to hit hard with, whether it's a long bow or a shorter bow, is you want to have, again, you want to have good structure on your arm and lining up with your body. So what's going to happen now is we're going to take that same step that we just did, and we're going to take the same bow turn, but this time you're going to bring the bow over and down. So it's going to come out, let the body turn, and then come down. So again, you'll be hitting towards the wrist area, this time the head, clavicle area, so anything that's coming down this way to try and strike the person. So I'll do it 2 times so you can see what I'm doing, and then we'll do our 5 repeats. So taking my step, 1, and hit. All right, so 5 times in a row. Here we go. Step, turn, 1. Step, turn, 2. Step, turn, 3. Step, turn, 4. Step, turn, 5. And step, turn, and 6. All right. So that's holding it predominantly like a cane, those 2 striking positions. All right. If you were on the Zoom class last week, you know that I use different, what we term kamai, which means to stand, or the more deeper meaning is to transition in time. So this particular kamai has a name. It's called Munen Muso. Don't have to remember it, just giving you a little information. From here, we're going to go to this position. Okay, so you're going to hold the Hanbo against your thighs, hands straight down. You want to kind of have it in thirds. So in other words, I don't want to be holding it like this, and I don't want to be holding it like this. I want to have as much evenness between each of my grabs as I possibly can. Now, this is where the striking is going to be a little bit different than what you're used to. If I'm going to hit forward, slow now, so just watch what I'm going to do. I'm just going to hold this out here so you can see what I'm doing with my hands. My left hand is going to slide. My right hand is going to slide. But my right hand is going to slide as the stick is coming out. The power for the strike is not coming from my right hand. It's coming from my left hand. So in other words, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my left hand and I'm going to pull it back. Pull it back to my body. This hand will do a little bit of work, but it's not as much as this left hand is doing. If I try to do this with just my right hand, my power level is going to be very low. I'm not going to strike hard. Not that you still don't want to get hit in the head with a stick, but my power level will be lower. If I pull it back and snap it, I'm getting a lot more power on what I'm doing. All right. So same thing when you're using a sword or my longer bow. When I use my longer bow, again, my power is coming from the rear hand, not from the front hand. So we're going to do the same step we did. Right foot step out, left foot's going to slide around. Now it's going to get a little more complicated where my left hand is going to slide a little bit and my right hand is going to slide, and I want to end up in this position when I'm finished. And you can see I'm using a lot of length of bow, all right? So if the bad guy was here, instead of being here like this, where I have him very, very close to me, I have him further away, okay? And I'm able to strike with a lot of power. So, and again, if you have any questions, put it in the chat or whatever, so that this way they can relay them to me and I can try and answer any questions you might have. So from here, again, we're starting from this position. Right foot's going to take a step out. My left foot's going to slide around. My left hand's going to slide the bow. I'm going to pull it back. My right hand's going to slide just about the middle position, and I'm going to extend it out. So 1, 2. Step and hit. Step and hit. Now, what you want to try and do is coordinate your hands with your feet. So as you're doing your first step, we're going to slide the left hand at the same time, so we're getting as much movement together as we can. So in other words, what I'm saying is I wouldn't go step, turn, then decide to hit. So as I'm stepping, see my hand is already moving. As I'm sliding around, my hand, the bow is coming up, and my right hand is sliding back so I can pull the bow in and hit the bad guys. So from here, we're going to do this 5 times. Step 1. Step 2. Step 3. Step 4. Step and 5. Now, I know for a fact that this is very powerful because when I was down in Florida a few years ago teaching at a friend's dojo, we were doing a big seminar. One of his instructors wanted to learn my style of longbow. So he said, how hard can you really hit with it? So I said, well, hold your bow out here and I'll hit. I broke his bow, which I was even surprised about, that it hit that hard. And it snapped his bow right in half. So when you hit with the body, when you hit with the proper motion, you put huge amounts of power in what you're doing. So this is coming to the side. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to come down. The little bit different now is when I take my step, I'm going to bring this straight up in front of me. All right? Maybe I'm blocking, maybe I'm covering, whatever it might be, doesn't really make a difference. We can get all semantics whenever we're together in person. But for now, all I'm going to do is bring this up. Now, as this comes, I'm taking my same stepping and turning. My rear hand, which will be my left hand right now, is going to shoot down. And I'm going to turn over so that, again, my hand and knuckles are pointed downward. All right? Because I want to have that bracing behind the Hanbo using my arm. So, one more time, this way you can kind of get hopefully an idea what I'm doing. So 1, 2. 1, 2. So step, as I step, I'm covering, I'm letting my body turn, and I'm hitting downward. And again, you're going to be hitting towards the wrist. In Japanese term, it's called kote, or towards the head, okay, which is called men, okay, or towards the clavicle. So let's do this 5 times in a row. So here we go. Step, lift, hit. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. How's everybody doing so far? We're going slow enough? We're going too fast? Give me some idea. If it's good, give a thumbs up so that they can let me know that everything's going good so far. I don't want to lose anybody. So if I need to backtrack a little bit, I'm happy to do that.
I got lots of thumbs up. They're looking awesome to me. So I think we're doing awesome. Thank you, sir.
So that was coming, well, for, again, general terms, top to bottom. Now we're going to go from bottom to top. So you might be hitting up under the hand. Maybe the person's coming at you in the olden days with a sword. So you want to hit up really quick and get up underneath those arms. So same thing. We're taking our same step. We're doing our same body rotation. We're doing our same lift. The difference now is instead of coming over the top, we're going to come up from underneath. Now, wrist position is going to be a little changed. All right? I don't want to hit like this up, and I don't want to hit like this up. All right? With the opening at the bottom, I hit up, and with the stick may stay, my hand keeps on going. So my hand is going to turn under. And you can see just by turning it under, the lift that I'm getting right away. All right? So, and again, keeping my wrist as straight as I possibly can keep it. All right. Watch a couple times, and then we'll do it together. So, taking my same step, bringing the stick up, but now coming under, and I'm going to drop my weight a little bit, all right? Because I might have to get a little bit lower, maybe to the groin or up underneath the wrist. So, step, hand slides, comes up underneath. And again, I'm pulling down with my left hand. This hand, if you can see it well, you can see this hand's really not doing a lot. All right, it's doing a little bit, but my power comes from my rear hand. All right, you have to remember that there has to, like we talked about a little bit in last week's class, it's a balance. You have the male hand, you have the female hand, the male, feminine, male and masculine and feminine. That's the word I'm looking for. As weird as it sounds, your power comes from the feminine side. Okay, boys, girls, men, women, doesn't make a difference. Your power comes from your feminine side. Now, your feminine side is always going to be to the back. So if I was going to the other side, my feminine side would be the right hand this time. This time, my feminine side is the left hand. So again, like we talked about before, we do lefts and rights. I do front and rear. It just makes it easier because front and rear is relative. So we're going to do that 5 more times from bottom to top. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, I'm leaving it up to you guys to do the other side when I'm not around because I don't want to bore you by doing each side. It gets boring doing the same thing over and over again. So that's from top to bottom, bottom to top. Now we're going to go sideways. Hand position, body position, everything is exactly the same except your ankle is striking this way. So again, I'm going to take my step. My hand is going to slide. My bow comes up, and it comes straight across. So this way I may be hitting to the side of the head, or I could even go low to the knees if I wanted to do something like that. But right now we're just going to come midline straight across. So again, one more time, I'm taking my step, my bow comes up, snap it across, right across the midline. All right, so like I said, you could do head, you could do midline, you can do lower. So we're going to do 5 times. And step 1, step 2. And you can feel the power, I think, if you're really whipping your body around as you're doing it. Step 3, step 4, and step 5. Now, another important aspect is your breath, all right? So make sure you're not going, all right? You want to breathe throughout the whole technique. So I'll exaggerate the breath. It's going to sound a little funny on the video, but so you kind of understand what I'm talking about with the breath. So. Now, if you're familiar a little bit, I think your terminology is kiap. I might be mistaken on that. Our terminology is kiai. All right, so the breath coming out can be a loud noise, or it can be a softer noise, all right, depending on what you're looking to accomplish. There is a whole system of study around the breath and around the ki and how to use it properly and in what way to use it, whether you're defending a block or whether you're attacking. So there are different ki for different things that you might be doing. So speaking of blocking, how are we going to block? That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that. So when you block, there's a couple of ways. You can block straight in the middle and turning. But now when you turn, you don't want to have your hand in this position. Again, if you were in a samurai in the old days, the guy was attacking with a sword, you went like this, the sword slid down, well, you lost your hand, which doesn't really help you too much to continue in your farming endeavors or fighting or whatever it might be. So as you do that, this hand is going to come underneath so that you have a clear path down the stick. And we do the same thing with the short rope shakubo. The interesting thing about what we do, the way I teach, is everything katana, sword, rokushakubo, hanbo, the hand positions and body movements are all identical. All right, so there's not a learning curve for each one. So that makes it a little bit more simpler to learn how to use your weapon. So from here, again, I'm going to take my step. I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to cover my head. I'm trying to let you see what I'm doing. See my body's in a straight line so that my body is protected by the stick. All right. So again, my hand is going to come underneath. It's resting on my forearm because again, I want to have support in case someone's battering down on a stick on me. Don't want to be like this so that if it batters down, I get hit in the head myself. I want to make sure that I've got this covered nicely. So same step, right? Let the body swing around. So as we do that, this is going to come up, we're going to go bang. Okay? But now the only little difference is that the stick is coming from this angle. Okay, so in other words, I want to have it from this angle and be standing like this because that would be not productive for me. It would hit me at full power. And what I'm trying to do is be on an angle enough where I'm not getting hit. All right, so that's important. So from here, bang. And make sure you're not in this position. Make sure this turns all the way over. All right, so that's important. So, now with this, we're not concerned about power, okay, because we're not blocking. We're kind of deflecting and letting the, whatever's attacking us, a stick, a sword, whatever it might be, a knife, letting it slide along the stick and get out of the way. If I wanted to attack with power, let's say the person was coming at me with a punch or something like that, we would do what we did before, bringing this across to attack the weapon strongly, okay? So let's kind of revamp a little bit and recap what we've done so far, so that this way, I don't want to throw so much stuff at you that when you go to practice, you go, oh, what do we do? I forgot. So let's recap. The first one we did, we started from this position. We stepped down, and we shot straight up. Now, I'm not doing anything with this hand right at the moment, just so you can see my motions and what I'm doing. But this hand would come to cover my face, all right, as a just in case I miss. So this hand would come up. So 5 times in a row, stepping to the right, letting the Hanbo come from the floor to the ceiling. 1, 2, 3, 4, and good. All right. Now we're going from ceiling to floor. All right, bringing it over. Again, same footwork, nothing's changing. So, stepping to the right and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, you might see the Hanbo going to the floor. That's following through with what I want to do. So, if I had to, in other words, I wouldn't go, and stop, because I want more power going through what I'm doing, all right? And I may want to follow up with another strike. 1, 2, okay? So by bringing it through, it allows me to continue my motion if I need to strike again. All right, from here, we're coming from this position, and we're doing, again, from ceiling to floor. So taking the same steps. 1, remember to bring the Hanbo up in front of you to cover. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Good. Now we're going from floor to ceiling. 1, 2, 3. Remember to breathe. 4, and 5. Nice. And now we're going to do our block. But now we're going to do our block a little bit differently, okay, in the footwork. We've been just doing the right foot step, so I want you to stick with the left foot this time. But the hands are going to stay the same. So we can block stepping with the right foot, and we can block stepping with the left foot. So just to change it up a tiny bit, we're going to step with the left foot this time, and we're going to block with the right hand underneath. Hope that makes sense to everybody. So left foot step, 1. Left foot step, 2. Left foot step, 3. Left foot step, 4. Left foot step, and 5. Cool. How much time do we have?
I mean, we're at like 5 minutes to 6. We don't have any like super hard deadline or anything on this class because this is the only class we've got tonight. So sort
okay.
of much
all
stuff
right.
as you want.
So would everybody, is that enough for everybody, or do you want a little bit more? Guys, thumbs up if you want more, thumbs down if you've had enough.
It's like we're about half and half. Let's just do one.
I didn't mean it was to happen.
All right. We can do a little question and answer as well if we'd like for the end.
That's no problem. So let's recap one more time just to make sure everybody's got everything. And then if you have any questions, I'll answer some questions, because then I don't want to throw more at you, because again, like I said, you know, I know when people go to like big convention, martial arts convention, stuff like that, they go to all sorts of different seminars, they learn all this different stuff, and then they go home and go, huh? I don't remember anything. I want you to remember. So let's just go recap. We're just going to go one after another, after another, after another. So first one is coming from floor to ceiling. Ready? 1.
He's doing the recap now if you want to.
3. 4. Coming from ceiling to floor. 1. 2. 3. 4. And 5. Okay, holding it with 2 hands. Coming from ceiling to floor again. Here we go. 1. 2. Make sure you're breathing. 3. 4. And 5. Coming from floor to ceiling. Here we go. 1. 2. 3. 4. And 5. And then stepping with the left foot, blocking with the right hand underneath. Here we go. 1. 2. 3. Get the Hanbo over your head. 4. And 5. All right. Is that good? How's everybody feeling? I'm getting my question and answer chair here.
All right. Good. So if you have any questions, you can either type them in the chat, or you can raise a hand, or you can come. We can, as long as we just one at a time. If you'd like to unmute, you can unmute if you got any questions. We have some questions on.
Questions don't have to be about Hanbo. They can be about anything. Like we talked about last week, I love questions.
Let our brains percolate a little bit. You've got a question, absolutely, sir. To clarify, I believe you said this, but with all, you say with all the different lengths of the staffs, the hand position is all the same?
The hand position will be predominantly all the same. There are a couple of little differences with the longer bow, where if you're doing a spinning motion or something like that, which again, if I can do it in here without taking out my fan and light. Again, what you guys tend to do is you tend to do the inverted, this kind of motion. Okay, our motion is a little bit different. And what happens with this is now it becomes a little bit difficult. So there's my hand positions. There's my hand positions. Okay, so you see they're pretty much the same. All right. Again, what this does is it allows you to minimize the learning curve on the various weapons. All right, so that this way all the striking stuff becomes the same. Now, with the longer bow, you're not going to be doing as much locking style technique as you might with the shorter bow. You're not going to be doing throwing style technique like you might be doing with the shorter bow. So the differences there become length differences, but not in the hand positions. The hand positions stay exactly the same.
Awesome. We have a question. Did you start learning this at the same time you started your other ninjutsu training, or at what point did you start the weapon training?
Weapons training was my actual first encounter with my teacher at that time was sword. Wasn't any empty hand stuff at all. We were in a gigantic school gymnasium. It was about maybe 250 people in that range. And we had wooden swords. And basically what he did is he showed the technique, how to step forward, cut, set, step forward, cut, step forward, cut, step, and drilled us, it was probably about 45 minutes up and down the gymnasium floor. So needless to say, that night I was quite sore.
I imagine.
Well, yeah, actually it was kind of funny because I had invited him to my house and a couple of other people to my house for dinner, and went to go downstairs into the basement to get something and couldn't get back up the stairs. My legs just wouldn't, I couldn't bend them. They were so sore. And so I had my wife came down and one of my buddies came down and they helped me get back up the stairs because I literally couldn't walk. A little embarrassing.
Well, I got a question for you. And
Sure.
last time in jiu-jitsu class, did you ever work with some soft tools, like in this case, for example, a shama, anything like that?
Slow that down and say it a little bit clearer. It was a little hard to hear you.
Well, let me get a little closer to that.
Yeah,
Well, in this case, and in the jiu-jitsu training that you did you ever worked with any soft tools, like, for example, a shama here?
I'm not sure what Ma is, but we do what's called manriki kusari or kusori fundo, which is a length of rope or chain with weights on the end. You also have the kusari gamba, which is a long length of chain with a weight and like a sickle type thing on the end of it. So if that's what you're referring to as soft weapons, those would be the two soft weapons that I learned. Predominantly, you know, if you kind of really think back to a long time ago, the initial weapons that man had was a stick or a rock. Okay, so that's what, you know, there was no forging of weapons back in the caveman days. Forging of weapons obviously came later on. So the stick is really, in my belief system, one of the best weapons you can learn, because anywhere on the street, you can roll up a newspaper, you can use a broom handle, you can use a shovel. There are techniques which you've seen probably with boat oars, because again, it's all the same thing. There's no change in what you do. With whatever if I'm using an end of a broomstick, I would use it the exact same way because it's just a long stick.
Right.
That makes sense.
Absolutely, it's got that very universal. Anything else?
Yeah, if you learn the sword's very cool. I love it. But you're not walking down the street carrying a sword. Okay. You know, if you learn a manriki kusari, with, like I said, the long rope with the two weights on the ends, you might have that in your pocket. You might carry that around if you have. Actually, I do know a couple of guys that made necklaces out of them, trying to be really cool. But again, it's not a weapon that you can carry around with you all the time. A police baton. You might see like the S that you hit and the thing becomes long. It's the same thing. It becomes the same thing, maybe more single-handed type of work, which you can do with the Hanbo too. You can use this single-handedly. You don't have to have both hands on it. And one of my teachers actually said, it was kind of funny. He tried to mimic it. He goes, Mark, you want to learn hard and how to hit? Like this. Hit. And it was kind of funny. And basically what he was trying to say is that in the modern day and age, you know, you're not fighting against a sword. You're fighting probably against a knife or someone who's coming out to punch you. And although it's really cool to do all the two-handed type stuff, you just might want to hit them. And that's, you know, and run away and get home. That's the most important thing. That's what you have to really remember about self-defense work. Self-defense work is not about annihilating the other guy. It's about getting away and getting home. Okay, you might take a couple of hits, you might get hurt, you might get your nose broken, God forbid. But it's not a matter of, you know, oh, I knocked this guy down and I knocked him out and I'm this great fighter. No, it's I got him away from me enough where I could turn tail and run and go home, and I could see my wife, my family, whatever it might be. That's really the most important thing about self-defense work.
Absolutely. All right.
You know, unless you're a police officer, or when I was teaching the FBI SWAT team and the DEA field agents, that's a completely different story because they have to restrain and handcuff, okay? The average everyday guy is not restraining and handcuffing because if you really think about it, you God forbid you get in a fight with someone, you arm lock him, you throw him on the floor, and you're holding him in an arm lock. Now what? What are you going to do? You're going to stand there all night long holding him in an arm lock? Maybe someone was nice enough to call the police. You know, think about it. You're standing, I'm locked. Okay, well, how's the wife and the kids? You know, it's not all about that. It's not how great that is. It's about, you know what? I knocked him down. I'm not going to hold him. I'm getting out of here. I'm running to my car, or I'm running, you know, to just get home.
All right.
Anything else?
Anybody have anything else before we can call it? Well, it's an awesome class.
So in case you weren't here last time, I'll give you just a quick background on me. I started martial arts when I was 16 years old. I hold 1 first-degree black belt, 2 second-degree black belts, 4 fourth-degree black belts, and 1 sixth-degree black belt. The 6th-degree black belt I don't acknowledge simply because it was given to me and I didn't test for it. All of my other rank I tested for. All right. I'm not a big believer in saying, "Oh, I got this rank because someone was nice enough to write me out a certificate and say, oh, you're a 6th-degree black belt." No, I need to say I tested and I needed to prove myself. So when you guys are going through your tests, remember your test is not. It's not a matter of, you know, look how great I am, look at what I can do, and it's for you to say I accomplished something, and I did the best I possibly could to accomplish the goal that I set myself out for. And that's really the most important thing. Because if you really think about it, rank don't mean nothing if you're out in the street.
Yeah. All right. Oh.
I know my philosophy goes against a lot of what people say.
Hey. There's the mentality, like I said, there's the school mentality and what things mean when you're training, and then there's what things mean when you're out on the street, the value you get when you teach.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Looks like we have a little bit of interest in maybe some more either clarifications and stories about teaching the SWAT teams. Yeah, someone.
Oh. That's actually on that trip. That's actually where Grandmaster Tanimoto accepted me as a student. The story is, before that, we were out to dinner, and in typical storybook fashion, you know, the martial arts ideal, we were crossing Sunrise Highway, which is a fairly major intersection here on Long Island, and we were waiting at a red light. I got down on one knee in the middle of the street and said, "Please accept me as a student." And he looked at me and he said, "No." I was like devastated. Here I am kneeling in the middle of the street and I got turned down. But nonetheless, he had asked me to go, he was invited to go to Gaithersburg down in Washington through a gentleman by the name of Michael Krivka to teach the FBI SWAT team. And I was asked to go along with 2 other people. And I have to say, hopefully it's changed by now, but the FBI SWAT team hand-to-hand combat training was not all that phenomenal. Their tactical and weapons work was amazing, but I basically told a couple of guys, I said, if I'm in a room and you have to fight your way in there, wait for me to fight my way out, because it'll probably be better. But, you know, it was a very, very interesting experience. I mean, being with these guys who are so knowledgeable in, you know, in tactics of how to save people and how to protect people. I learned a lot myself, and was fortunate and very grateful that I was able to help them learn a little bit more on their hand-to-hand work. And that was actually that night after dinner is when Tanimoto Sensei came to my room and knocked on the door and said, "I'll accept you as a student." So the trip was very productive in those aspects. But it was an interesting trip. Being out with your teacher is always interesting, because I learn more sometimes sitting at dinner, philosophically wise and spiritually wise, than you do on the training floor. So it was a good trip, though. That's about best. I can't tell you a whole lot more about it because it was a confidential kind of a thing. But basically, it was a good trip.
Wonderful. Excellent.